Last year you told us your father came over on one of the boats and cleaned the boats that you now
right, and that is a true story, and it's really an inspiration to people who come to the United States for immigrants, because I'm a first-generation American citizen. My father had joined the Navy because he needed an opportunity. There was economic depression where he was from after World War II in the Philippines, and the military was an open door for him, but because it was a segregated military at the time, the only thing that he was allowed to do, not that he couldn't do, but was allowed to do was basically be a cabin boy and clean staterooms. But you know what? He was proud to do it. And, you know, I stood there and I was just marveling that who would have thought that his daughter would not only be a captain in the United States Navy, but then riding Air Force One. I went to the bathroom and I was just like, I was making the little selfie videos, you know, and they're like, you can't take pictures here. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go to the bathroom and just get the pictures. So.
But it's an experience. When I worked with President Clinton, and, you know, we don't get up there often. So they have these little white telephones, and they say they connect you. They say you can call anywhere in the world. And so I picked it up, and you try to act like you've been there before, right? I was like, Mom, do you know where I am? So my brother was like, girl, go in the bathroom, take everything they got. So I was stuffing stuff in. I was like, yeah, I'm taking the comb, the toothpaste, everything. So it's a fascinating experience. So your assignment was to do what?
Well, my assignment is to be the chaplain for Washington, D.C. And so basically, since President Bush was a Navy veteran, then the corresponding service branch chaplain would be the assigned person. So if President Carter will pass, then I'm on the watch for that. So I am still sleeping with my cell phone under the pillow for that.
Wow. Now you're a mother of 4.
That's correct.
Married, Navy captain and chaplain. So when do you find time for self-care for Judy?
Right now. Just carving out those sacred spaces when you can, and finding the fun, the fellowship when you can, and just connecting with other people. And you might not have a lot of time to do it, but it's not the right quantity of time, it's the quality of time. And I like what you said, you know, like you have connections with people and you may not have known them very well, but your soul is refreshed just to be in the room. And I think that's an important piece.
So you were one of the first provost members from this area.
Yes.
Actually, you wrote the check and I was so glad. So you get a high five.
Okay, all right.
Why do you think it's important?
You know, because it gives a voice, and just a gathering that celebrates each other. You don't have to try to be somebody else, or you know, you may feel like, wow, I'm just kind of that circle in this square hole. You know what I mean? That I can fit and be who I am, and be celebrated and accepted, and be with other people, and not have to try and be something else to succeed. So
the other part wasn't just the Sheryl Sandberg reaction, but it was also the world that I was in, which was religious freedom.
Right.
It was very conservative, very white male, and the choices were, are you pro-choice or pro-life? And my thing is, these are men giving us choices of what we should do with our bodies. So I'm saying we're pro-voice, that a woman has a voice in every area of our life. So we are pro-voice, pro-boss for the Latino population, but we should have a voice in every area of our life. What's the area of your life that you think you want to shout out, that you want to make sure people know about you?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think it's just don't underestimate. And I get that a lot because I am, by a chosen profession, in a very male-dominated profession. And in the clergy, within the military, there's only 5% of women, and minorities even less. And so it's interesting that I get underestimated all the time. You know, they see me, they're just not quite sure what it's all about. But I would just say, just don't underestimate anybody that you come encounter with. Whether you're meeting individually with somebody, look beyond what they look at. Look into the heart and soul and see, and treat people with dignity and respect, because they are made in the image of God. So, if anything, it's just, you know, look beyond.
Yeah, I mean, David, the scripture says that, you know, that you man or woman looks at the outside, but God looks at the heart. And so we thank you for having a heart. When do you know that you experience the most sexism in your role?
Well, I'll just give you a funny story. As you watched on TV, if you did watch, the ceremonies are extremely rehearsed. And the ceremonial units, that's all they do, is they just practice ceremonies. And they're very precision. I mean, they're quite the specimen, but they're just very precise. And I remember, and that's not something I normally do. I just get called up to do it. And I had this, I felt like I had to have a conversation with the lead planner of the whole event, because you just can't have any surprises. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to broach it. I said, I'm thinking about wearing a skirt. And, that just did not even compute in his brain. Why should you be different? Mm-hmm. The other women are wearing pants. Why can't you wear pants? I mean, this is a conversation we're having in the back of the Suburban as we're riding back in the hotel the night before the first ceremony, and I was just adamant. Mm. I said, look, I'm not part of that military procession, if you will. I'm representing a chaplain. And I'm a lady, and so I will wear a skirt because it's authorized. And it took some convincing, but again, it's that they just don't see that. But it was a little thing, it was a deliberate thing, but I wanted to send a message, and it was funny. So on the Capitol steps, 30-degree weather, I'm in a skirt and heels, but I would do it all over again. Because I tell you, the reaction from many women in the military was unbelievable. I mean, I've had thousands of Facebook, hits and posts, thank you for representing women, but it's just the little things that you just have to chip away at people's implicit bias that, maybe they didn't think about that. Why couldn't I just look like everybody else? Well, I'm not everybody else.
Exactly.
And just finding kind of those moments.
I had that same fight with the police department. I was tapping and just flashback because they were like, you gonna wear a skirt? I was like, yes. So yeah, I remember that. So there was a time also that when you first entered and you were on a ship, you ended up having to bake cookies to win somebody's favor. Is it anything that it takes? Whatever it takes, is that what you have to do?
I think so, and it's not. So I try to work on my own implicit bias, and when I see people's actions, I try to see what's behind that. So I'll just give you a funny story. So it's one of the first ceremonies. We're arriving. I'm riding Air Force One, which was blowing my mind out, and we're there. There's the casket, there's the first family, I see Bush 43. And he gives me the look, because we're pretty close up, I'm next to the hearse, and he's got that look like, who are you? Something looks odd, you don't look like everybody else. And I'm saluting, the music's playing, and he's winking at me. I thought, okay, last time I checked I was a Navy captain, but we'll see what's behind the winking, okay, because I read he kind of does that, he winked at the Queen, so, okay, I'll take that. And so, from different ceremonies, I'm standing at attention, but he could see me, I could see him and the family, and he winks. He's just winking. So this goes on. And so National Cathedral, the big ceremony, I'm standing at attention, and I get not one but two winks. And I thought, okay, I think he's trying to tell me that he notices me or something, but we'll just continue on smartly. So after the ceremony, we go up to the plane, and he's waiting, and he gives me a big hug. And he says, thank you. I mean, a big bear hug. I mean, not creepy or anything, but I just thought it was a really appreciative kind of hug, saying thank you, thank you to the military, thank you for being here, just very soft, gentle words. And so I said, well, I'm going to hug you now, and I'm going to tell you something. You did a great job at the cathedral. I said, that was a hard job for you to do, because that was your father?
Yeah.
But I said, you know what? I could have been turned off by the winky thing. Yeah. But if God is opening a door for someone to say, it's not about the wink. It's about, I notice you.
Yeah.
That you got to just walk in that sacred space and take the moment.
That's right.
And so I believe I was able to minister to him. And you know what he said to me? He said, I've done 6 speeches at the National Cathedral. He said, I thought September 14th was the hardest. He said, that was the hardest.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that kind of ministry of presence really wasn't me. I just felt that moment. And again, this continued until the final internment, which was very private. But
did you have to go through all of them?
All a dozen ceremonies. I rode with the family, rode the train, all of that. But it was, for me, if I thought it was about the ceremonies, I would have missed it as a minister of the gospel. Like if it was just about pomp and circumstance and no one went to salute, I would have missed that.
Yeah.
Because that was just the door. That was just to get you in. But what are you going to do? What are you going to bring to the table once you get in there?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so And so there's two other clergy, you know, and they're men, you know, they're not, you know, so I go up and there's 43, 5 feet from me. And I tell you, the strain on that family, dozens of ceremony in the public eye, they can't grieve.
Right.
I mean, every moment is on camera. But they begin to grieve. And to have this former president of the United States crying on my neck and just beautiful words of what the presence of a chaplain meant, maybe me specifically, I don't know, but I just stepped out of it and said, you know, when God calls you, you got to be where it matters, when it matters. You got to bring something that matters, and just to be able to minister. And I thought that was my takeaway. So it's not about the plane. It is, but it isn't. But it is. But it just gets you there, right? It just gets you there.
Exactly.
And so I think I was able to minister. And, you know, I told the lead planner, I think I was the right chaplain. I wasn't seeking this job, but it was just at the right moment. So I'm just thankful. And so now it's just, you just got to bring it.
So there's a scripture in Jeremiah that says, you know, before I formed you, I already destined where you're going to be. So at this particular moment, did you feel that this was a destiny moment?
It was a destiny moment because I think it opened some doors, not just with individuals, but spiritually for me, because it doesn't faze me now. Like if you, whatever position that you are, let me see you how God sees you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let me see you in that vulnerability. What is in your soul that maybe I can help with, that maybe God has given me a word to you for?
Awesome.
And not be so just kind of intimidated by it all.
Exactly.
You just got to bring it.
Exactly. Similarly, when Coretta Scott King died, you know, I went down to be with Yolanda because she's my friend. She's my best friend. I went to be with, and I ended up officiating her mother's funeral. But it was one of those moments you're like, God definitely ordained this. So 43 was there. It was 4 presidents of the United States came in, Congress, and everybody came from all over the world. But I got to know him. He winked that day too.
Okay.
So that's just kind of his signature. But he was like, so when do I speak? I was like, am I going to speak? I said, you're the president of the United States. You will speak. You will speak. But it was just, I got to see a humorous side of him, and I saw a little boy side of him that was just not always, I'm the president, I'm large and in charge, but I'm also human, and I need some, you know, I need some human touch. And so that's what you brought, a ministry of presence. So what would you say, in that moment, you know what you brought to the table? What do you bring to the table in life? What do you bring to the table?
Well, I think there's something to be said about a ministry of presence, because when I thought about it, every time that family looked at the casket, I'm standing next to it. And so I thought, well, what a privilege just to represent the divine. I don't even have to say anything. But just the fact that every time that the casket was there, I mean, even my plane, even my seat on the airplane, I sat next to the casket. I sat next to 41. And it, you know, it broke my heart that people waited in line 8 hours in the rotunda just to see. But I sat next to that was my assigned seat. And so I think that ministry of presence, you don't even have to speak a word. You don't even have to do a thing. But just that they know that you represent the divine is powerful.
It's powerful.
You know, it is symbolic. It is, and in that moment that God gives you where you can speak the word or do the deed, how much more powerful would it be? They knew, they saw. And so I think I just want to be more aware of what that ministry of presence is.
So, you've been with the U.S. Navy many years. You're a mommy. You're a wife. You've been on Air Force One. You've accompanied number 41. You've been with 43. You've had a wink. You've had all of that. What's on your bucket list? What haven't you done that you just wish you could do? What's on your bucket list?
You know, I would love to meet Michelle Obama. You know how hard it was not to even just pull out the camera at the cathedral and go, Michelle! You know, so that's how. So if you got some kind of connection there,
we'll see what we can do. And what's your number 2?
I think the number 2 is just be still. and just be still and quiet in the Lord and see what's next.
What fun thing would you like to do that you don't do often?
Probably go to the spa. So there you go. All right.
All right. Well, can you look in the camera and just say, I'm Captain Judy Malana, I'm a member of Pro Voice, and can you say one thing you would want women to remember about you?
Okay. So I'm Judy Malana. I'm a member of Pro Voice, and I would just like you to know that whatever God has for you, God has for you. So go in, all in, head first, deep dive, because when God opens the door for you, nobody's going to shut it.
I'm Ambassador Suzan Johnson Cook. I'm a friend of Captain Judy Malana. I love Pro Voice. Okay. So we're going to take 2 questions from anybody in the room. Just stand with your loud voice, and Glenn's going to shoot the camera around your way. Any questions for Captain Judy Malana or me? We have time for 2. Please stand. This is Hattie Washington, author of Miss Hattie's famous cookbook. And what's your question? And we want not the Sermon on the Mount. We want the Jesus Wept. Okay.
Just curious, while you were sitting there with the casket all of that time and you're in the presence of God, what is the expression? I'm trying to think of how you're looking at the family, you're looking at the casket. What is your expression and how are you using that time sitting there?
I think it was a mix of emotions, no doubt, but just trying to not be overwhelmed, but being at the moment and kind of shutting everything out and trying just to be still in the moment. Because there was a lot of things going on, a lot of emotions, a lot of people, a lot of cameras, but then just kind of focusing in on why I was there and what the mission was all about.
And it wasn't about you.
It wasn't about me. I was just a piece in the puzzle.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you, Hattie. Anyone else have a question o pregunta? We can translate en español. ¿Tiene una pregunta para Captain Judy? Okay, question there. Please stand and tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Dawson-Giles. I hear the proudness that you have for your father and what he accomplished and what he allowed you to accomplish in your life. What legacy would you like to leave for your children?
Great question. What legacy would you like to leave?
And that's the legacy of service. I think it's not a matter of what you get, it's what you give.
Yeah.
And it's service above self. So thank you for that question, and I think that resonates with all of us, and I think that's what Pro Voice does. It lifts up leaders to serve others, right? At home, in communities, and internationally.
Yeah.
So being a part of this kind of organization is very inspirational. So thank you.
Ooh, that's the best commercial.
Okay.
We have time for one last question. Well, won't you join me in saluting and honoring Captain Judy? Thank you so much for your time and your service.